Right. This is the third attempt to do a review of The Hound of the Baskervilles. Not the book, but 4 films. So, without further ado, we'll rush on. And I'm still smoking the same pipe I lit up. And that's attempted to upload 2 of them. Anyway, here we go. The first one is the Basil Rathbone Nigel Bruce version. It was made in 1939 by 20th Century Fox. It's a workmanlike version of it. It's unlike the Universal pictures, which he made 12 of. It is actually set in the period, so it's in the 19th century. It's quite a lavish production. It doesn't stick entirely to the story. It writes out Laura Lyons as a character, which I think is rather central. But it's nevertheless a good workmanlike version of the book. It features Nigel Bruce as Dr. Watson. I like Nigel Bruce. However, rather silly in places, but kind of good. But I like it. But anyway, I'm doing this very quickly because I don't want to be spending the rest of my day doing it and being told I can't upload them. The next one is from the BBC collection. Now that's starring Peter Cushing. Now, interestingly, this was his second portrayal of Sherlock Holmes. His first was in a Hammer film. Hammer famously made a series of horror films. Their version of The Hound of the Baskervilles has Henry Baskerville played by Christopher Lee, who does it very good. It's very good, but it's a strange Hammer-like version with webbed feet and all sorts of strange nonsense, and not really, I don't think, worth it if you're going to spend some money. That version, it was made for television, so the art direction, the sets and things are a little Spartan. You don't get to see too much of Dartmoor, but nevertheless quite a good version. The next one I want to look at is probably the best. It's the Jeremy Brett version. Jeremy Brett, a superb actor, and his portrayal of Holmes, certainly in the earlier seasons of the Granada productions of Sherlock Holmes, is excellent. He captures Holmes, his electric and personality and so on brilliantly, and highly recommendable. The only problem with the Brett version is that in the early part of the film, Holmes recognises that Sir Henry Baskerville is being followed in London, and chases after a cab with a man with a beard. But unfortunately, you get a full frontal shot of the villain of the piece. And so you will know who's done it very early on, because 10 minutes later you'll find yourself on Dartmoor, and you'll meet the character that's been following them, which will gives you a rather large clue as to who's done it. Anyway, last but not least is the more recent BBC version with Richard Roxburgh as Holmes and Ian Hart as Dr. Watson. Plus factors are that Ian Hart plays Dr. Watson not as some bumbling idiot. In the Peter Cushing version, it's Nigel Stock, who physically looks like Nigel Bruce, and also plays Watson as a bit of a bumbling idiot. He's a medical doctor, he's an intelligent man, he doesn't have the deductive insights that Holmes has, but nevertheless he's not an idiot. So Ian Hart's the plus factor. Stapleton is played by Richard E. Grant, who plays a very sinister, creepy Stapleton. It's very good. The downsides for me are that the BBC in their infinite wisdom have decided that Sherlock Holmes no longer smokes a pipe. Now, this isn't some sort of thing about has to smoke a pipe, but I think that Sherlock Holmes, it's rather essential to his processes in his deduction and detection of crime. The pipe is part of that process whereby he contemplates and thinks. Now, the absence of the pipe, I just think, is a piece of revisionism on the part of the BBC, and it's rather silly. It's got a very good ending. I won't spoil that for you. Just another brief point. The ending of the Basil Rathbone version is a little wet. You don't get what the Americans call closure. Stapleton goes running off into the night, and that's that, and that's the end of it. And you don't get to see him get his just desserts. So I'm sorry to have had to scoot through this at 100 miles an hour, but it's my first attempt at a review, and I shall perhaps in future make a few notes, then perhaps it won't run on for so long. But yeah, anyway, for the pipe enthusiast, by the way, I'm smoking a freehand James Upshaw. It's a large one, it's quite a nice pipe, and I'm smoking a bit of the Old Special Reserve, which is my favourite sort of working tobacco at the moment. Okay, well, I hope that's been interesting, and I hope it's not been a little too sort of speedy. But there we go. Okay, cheers.